Hello and welcome. Here are 5 tactical and practical marketing tactics that I've learned from speaking to AI B2B agency owners. Alright, so here we go. First of all, we're going to talk about product quality, time allotment for content, task management, delegation, and lead gen. So let's jump straight in. Product completion versus perfectionism. First of all, should we focus on completing the project, and if so, at what point do we know that the product is complete, and what are our criteria by which to measure good enough? And so oftentimes we should just listen to the market for that. So I had a conversation with a client of mine the other day. It was Sunday, which was yesterday. Brilliant. All right. Yes, so and we talked about when is the right time to focus on the product and when is the right time to listen to the market data to tell us about the product and what features are being wanted. And I said to him that unless the market is requesting this feature or is repeatedly pointing out that flaw that you perceive in the product, unless that's happening, and it is happening repeatedly so much so that that becomes a pattern, then we should be focusing on that. So, as I said, I was talking to another client of mine where we were reflecting upon the product that he has with Hagen avatars. And so we were speaking about the lip sync, the synchronization of the lip movement. And we came to the conclusion, unless the market is pointing that out repeatedly, there is no need to focus on that, because it's likely a psychological bias that you put more emphasis on that because you're looking at how that makes you look, how you are being perceived, but through the filter of how you want to be perceived, not judging by the data. So you're basically seeing it from a very self-centered position rather than from a client-centered position. You take your point of view when looking at your product instead of taking the client's point of view. As I'm realizing that, I have a bit of a kind of a harsh kind of voice going on right now. So anyways, I just want to make you aware of it. It's advisable to leave your own point of view and take the client's point of view when looking at the product, because then usually you will make decisions based on what your clients really want and need, which ultimately will serve you much more. Egoism and the egocentrism creates a lot of hurt and pain for yourself and everybody else. And the client-centric point of view usually leads to success much faster. Second point, client acquisition over content creation. So we were speaking about how do we bridge and how do we allot the time between content creation and client acquisition. And obviously content creation should be geared towards client acquisition with that in mind, because that's also a psychological point that I want to make, that oftentimes we can make content just for the sake of making content, just in the same way as in my first year of YouTube. I was just making the content for myself, basically, because I did not have the capacity to see it from my client's point of view, because I didn't even know who my client was. And for me, it was, in the first year, challenging enough to just show up every day. So if you need to build that muscle, that's fine. But eventually, we want to make content that is geared towards client acquisition. And so I also said that the activities that we do and engage in day by day should lead towards client acquisition. Not only content so that I have published content, but so that we actually prioritize client acquisition. And so for that reason, I also said that instead of putting the emphasis on making posts on LinkedIn, just send the connection requests and send messages. Instead of writing a post, write messages to the people that you already have among your connections. Now that's harder, that's sometimes psychologically more challenging because we deal with the rejection, but that will lead more likely to client acquisition than making posts on LinkedIn. Honestly, I would even say don't even post at all. Just text people, first of all, because the likelihood that you're going to get clients with your content on LinkedIn probably is close to zero. But getting clients through actually sending messages, that would be great. And so then you also have the healthy pressure on yourself once you actually get some positive responses. Because if you send messages, if you start sending messages and nobody gets back to you, then you know that making content does not matter at all. Because first of all, we got to learn the skills of sending the messages to the right people in the right kind of way and then having them come back to us so that we can elicit a response. And that's a skill that takes a lot of repetition. And only when people get back to us and then we're like ashamed by looking at our profile because it's not very, it looks very scarce, then can we make some content so that we have something on there, right? So prioritizing client acquisition versus content creation. So focus the management on high impact tasks. First of all, there are high impact tasks. There's time management, prioritization, distraction control, and energy management. And the reason why I place the energy management at the bottom is because that's all of it. The more, if we have more energy, so the more energy we have, the more we can funnel that energy into the tasks that are driving the business forward. And also the tasks, frankly, that are driving our lives forward. Because why don't most people work out? They know they should, but they're just tired. And then what are you going to do? It's like, you know exactly what that feels like when you're tired at the end of the day and when you just don't have any more energy to spend. Then you got to first put the energy towards purification, clarification, and cleanup so that you actually have more energy, because you can only go to zero, really. You can go below zero, but then you eat into the energy for the next day, and you can run that for 2 or 3 months, but then eventually you're going to have a crash. So overall, we want to ideally be in balance, right? So that we don't have these kind of crash and burn cycles of going up and going down, but managing our energy. And for that reason, it makes sense to put the energy towards actions that give us more energy in the future. Distraction control and everything else is self-explanatory here. So strategic delegation to scale operations. So what we've been talking about is, first of all, augmenting the automation systems with a VA that can eventually help with that. And so we came to the conclusion that with the current state of the technology, we can get 80% of the outcome. So we can get there to about 80% until the solution is more or less there. But then for the rest of the 20%, it makes sense currently to augment that manually so that we also learn the process of what is involved in the process so that we can teach that accurately to AI, because oftentimes writing a prompt or writing an SOP for an employee is not that different. That's why it's also beautiful to learn AI right now in the still early stages, although right now it's accelerating and starting to be useful. But it's very good because we're setting ourselves up with the initial skills of actually going into all of the processes, clarifying that, and then describing that, finding words. And what that means is that we need to have awareness about what we actually want and awareness about what we want our processes to be like, which is very important. Because unless you have awareness about that, and unless you can abstract from it, you can hardly describe it or explain it to the language model or to an employee for that matter. And so higher level strategic planning, employee empowerment, task and responsibility assignment. Basically, the crux of that is the bottom line, that with AI, we have this huge opportunity right now to clarify our processes and simplify what we are doing so that we know exactly what the processes are that we are engaging in on a daily and weekly basis. What are our processes? And then finding a way to explain them to the LLM and in the beginning also to VAs, because I do think both capacities, the prompting and the automation, as well as hiring, I think these two go together, because I oftentimes also see that AI enthusiasts want to have it AI only because they believe that this will be easy at some point. But I might be wrong with that, but my prediction for that is until that's really working, that's going to be another 3 years at least away. So like now 25, by the end of 27, yeah, 2.5 years at least, in my opinion, that where it's truly like you don't need anybody, it gets it perfect every time, and you only approve of the output. But I do still think that both skills, I certainly would focus on both skills. All right, let's go. Last point here. Making lead generation enjoyable rather than burdensome. This is something that we spoke about as well. I said this to both of my clients, and frankly, I say this to myself as well, where even though currently I'm setting up a lot of infrastructure and sometimes, yeah, within the payment accounts, the funds are being held, so sometimes it's a little bit chaotic with the payment situation currently, I have to say honestly. But so yeah, what I mean by that is that it can be enjoyable rather than burdensome. I said this to both of my clients, that now that you have the product ready, or at least ready enough to present it to people and get the feedback and the market response, it can be fun. And we can make it fun. Why not? One of my clients, he says like, yeah, I just put this app on my phone and then I put it down. It's like, that's good good to talk to each other about, because I also tend to be quite hard on myself, and I get to see that when I talk to the people that advise me in my life, right? And me as the strategic advisor and coach to my clients, I can tell them the same thing. And so in this way we can help each other. What I mean by that is, I said to him, you don't have to do that even in your office if you don't want to. I mean, you can, but at this point, like, you have your network, your LinkedIn is well established, you don't need to start from zero. You have done that years ago, it's well established. Why can't you sit on your balcony as well and like text a little bit, and you still do your 25-minute Pomodoro technique, and then you go 25 minutes in. Maybe what you need is like a little bit more movement, and you do a bit of push-ups or some burpees or whatever heck you want to do, some stretching. It doesn't have to suck, really. You can go to the gym, and in between the sets you just do like a little 5 minutes. What's wrong with resting 5 minutes or even 10 minutes between the sets? Make it enjoyable. Just send the messages. Find a way to send the messages, because once the product is ready, and once we have it to the point where it's scalable, like for him, his solution with the Hagen avatar videos, I said, this is the product. This is the product. And now when people pay you for that, you know that you can do that, and you know that you can, in the same way, just as easily delegate that to the VA that you already have. So I'm like, relax. Just find a way to send the messages, and it doesn't have to be in your office. Why not treat yourself nicely and go to the public pool? Now in Europe, the summer is starting slowly and coming up. And I'm like, why not enjoy that? All right, so all of that being said, let's clarify what we do. I'm very fortunate to be working with clients who have their life together, so that they are professionals already for years, that they can actually focus on that work. Because the first clients that I had as a coach, they were not that. They needed me and my help to sort out exactly the points that I have been spending like a decade sorting out in myself, how to actually not lay in bed depressed and actually engage with life and do the things that create success in life over the long run, right? But if you don't know what you're doing wrong, then you're just doing it wrong. And so, yeah. All right, so these are the 5 points. And thank you everybody for watching. Any clarifications that you want, or any recommendations, or requests, write in the comments. I love and appreciate every one of you.